I was not extremely patriotic about Mother Russia. I played their game, pretending. You have to deal with, party people, KGB, horrified, Mikhail Baryshnikov. Following the Russian Revolution in 1917, Russia's traditional monarch, the Tsar, was executed, and in his place came a new form of government called communism. Communism generated a new way of thinking about economy, society, art, and the role of government. Officials called Bolsheviks set out to cleanse Russia of all the injustices that had come from social class and economic differences. They triumphed in some ways. The Tsar was replaced with a council of people's commissars, and private ownership was eradicated. All decisions would now be made by committee. Any resistance to communist dogma was dangerous. Some brave Russian choreographers, like Leonid Yakobson in the 1940s, took a stand against the Soviet regime through the creation of original ballets that favored individuals over socialist realism. His ballets were considered so explosive that their impact was described as like a bomb going off. For Yakobson, ballet was a form of political discourse, and he was particularly alive to the suppressed identity of Soviet Jews and officially sanctioned anti-Semitism. Like a bomb going off, Leonid Yakobson and Ballet as Resistance in Soviet Russia by Janice Ross. Leonid Yakobson was born January 15, 1904, in St. Petersburg, Russia. Yakobson was a student at Leningrad Choreographic School and staged his first ballet when he was still a teenager. His first works were in sharp contrast to the traditions of his classical ballet school, and he immediately found himself in dispute with the Soviet Party and ballet officials and experts. When Yakobson graduated in 1926, nobody doubted his talent, but still he was unable to find work. This rebel insisted on embedding within his ballets forbidden material, such as Jewish cultural motifs, and insisting on the portrayal of men who did not fit the approved Soviet model. The Soviets attempted to mold the formal imperial ballet to suit their revolutionary cultural agenda and to employ it to re-educate the masses. Swans of the Kremlin, Ballet and Power in Soviet Russia, by Christina Ezrahi. Yakobson and his fellow dancers both suffered and benefited from a regime that valued ballet but not individuality. Soviet dancers were only allowed to focus on state-sanctioned classical ballet instead of going into newer and more creative forms of dance like contemporary, musical theater, plotless, American, and neoclassical ballet. Undaunted, in 1959, Leonid Yakobson created the choreographing miniatures. It was filmed and received a number of international awards. He created in the Kurov Theater a number of other ballets, but the censors would not let them on stage, since they thought his ballets inappropriate for the Soviet audience. Among these ballet miniatures is a Vestris for Mikhail Baryshnikov. In this work, Yakobson took a stand against conformity, layering critiques of ballet history, official Soviet values, and the toll of forever policing one's behavior. The emphasis is entirely in the putting on of the mask, something these two artists would have understood all too well. The Cold War isn't thawing. It is burning with a deadly heat. Communism isn't sleeping. It is, as always, plotting, scheming, working, fighting. Richard M. Nixon. From the years 1947 to 1991, the Soviet Union and the USA were engaged in a battle of political philosophy called the Cold War. The Soviet Union thought communism was the best system, and the United States favored democracy. Communism was viewed as a huge iceberg which could sink America. Mikhail Baryshnikov, born in Latvia in 1948, began formal ballet schooling in 1960 at Vaganova Academy of Russian Ballet, which was one of the oldest schools in Europe, established in 1738. Baryshnikov quickly became dissatisfied because he couldn't do any modern dance. Mikhail Baryshnikov wanted freedom for personal and artistic reasons, which he knew he would never be granted in the USSR. Mikhail Baryshnikov was inspired to leave Russia by the modern dance he would see when he was touring Europe with his ballet company, and by the successful defection of Rudolf Nureyev, another famous Russian dancer, in 1961. With support from Baryshnikov's friends, he decided he would take a stand for his art and against the Soviet regime by defecting after a performance in Canada on June 29, 1974. His KGB minders told him to board a bus that was taking all the dancers to a post-performance party. But Baryshnikov's fans successfully distracted the KGB and he was able to successfully apply for political asylum. "I'm a product of Russian culture, but it never felt it was my country." Mikhail Baryshnikov. When Mikhail Baryshnikov defected to the West, the USA was able to claim a propaganda victory which deeply embarrassed Russia. Both Leonid Yakobson and Mikhail Baryshnikov, in their own ways, took a stand against artistic restrictions under communism. Yakobson fought for freedom and ethnic equality from within the system, while Baryshnikov chose to leave his homeland to pursue his art. For these two artists, there could be no higher goal than to express themselves fully and without government interference.
Baryshnikov's technique is faultless, his interpretation magnificent.
Yakobson never left Mother Russia, but his career was in many ways handicapped by his stubborn insistence on going against Soviet doctrine, coupled with the fact that he was Jewish in a country that was very prejudiced. Defiant until the end of his life in 1975, he continued to stage miniature ballets that defied Soviet convention. As for Baryshnikov, his grand leap towards freedom was not without great risk, for both himself and for the family left behind. By taking a stand for freedom, this supremely talented dancer and choreographer put his family in danger. The Soviet government had a policy to punish the families of defectors by labeling them as traitors and sending them to jail, or in extreme cases, ordering executions. Baryshnikov's stand for artistic freedom was aided by Western media. Baryshnikov was able to use the press to bring attention to the repressive dance conditions in the Soviet Union. His defection was humiliating for the Soviet Union and showed that the paradise of communism was a big lie. After defecting, Baryshnikov danced with the American Ballet Theatre and became their artistic director. He contributed to the emergence of an entirely new style of ballet, combining modern and classical ballet into what is now called American ballet. Today, post-Cold War, this dancer and choreographer are viewed as heroes in the West and traitors in Russia. Baryshnikov says, "I think I would be broken mentally by now, but I'm sure I would have adapted, like so many people there do."
Oh!